So today, I was proud of our nation. I was proud of our president. And I don't know if you got to see his speech that he delivered before he left Israel today. He's probably in the air on Air Force One traveling home. And I've never traveled back from Israel on a private charter jet, so I don't know how long it takes. It's probably a lot closer when you can drive straight at 40,000 feet, you know, instead of 30,000 feet or 50,000 feet. But I think he's still in the air, probably getting in maybe about 11 or 12 tonight. But I am so glad that our nation is standing behind Israel, especially on this day, on today, where the Islamic terrorists, especially Hezbollah, they announced to the world that this would be a day of anger, a day of rage. And some misinformation on the news stirred up a lot of Arab nations to where there were thousands in the streets today protesting against Israel and angry on this day of rage. But as God would have it, our president was landing in Tel Aviv, landing in the middle of the war. He's the only president that's ever landed in Israel during a war. Now think about it, all the rockets that are flying around in the air, and Air Force One, yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big target, is landing. I love it because I know that the God of Israel watches over Israel day and night. And there are angels in the air. But Hezbollah declared this day of unprecedented anger in response to an explosion at a hospital downtown Gaza City. And because Hamas had announced that this was a result of an air attack of the IDF bombing a hospital. Now, bombing a hospital is the biggest international war crime that you can do because, you know, there's a lot of innocent people that are sick, getting killed. And in Gaza, there's additionally a lot of people are taking refuge in the hospitals because they know that they won't be bombed. And make no mistake about it, the weapons that Israel have are guided missiles, and they are able to fight this war very surgically. I mean, when you see the pinpoint accuracy, I mean, they land in the middle of the building that they want to take out, and you see that building fall just like the trade towers fell, straight down. And these rockets that Israel uses, they all create a big crater. Well, as it turned out, Israel did not shoot the rocket that took out, and it didn't take out this hospital. That was false news. Well, what would we expect from the terrorists that have been controlling Gaza for these number of years? Not Hezbollah, but Hamas. And they're the ones that put out this report. They put out this report while the Arab news network, Al Jazeera, were already reporting that exactly what it was. And they had a video up to show that what had happened, there was a misfired rocket where the Islamic terrorists, not Hamas, but another small group that was shooting rockets into Israel. There was probably 8 or 10 barrage of rockets. Well, one of them misfired, and it didn't, you know, it fell short of where it was intended. It didn't get out of Gaza, and it fell in the parking lot next to this hospital and caused a firestorm, not a crater, but these rockets are rockets that have fuel to carry them to their destination, and that rocket full of fuel landed and created a lot of fire. And so there wasn't the death count that Hamas had declared. I don't know that latest on that particular explosion, but it didn't bring the hospital down. Those people that were hurt in that, they got into the hospital right away. That was right there in the parking lot. But what the enemy is trying to do is to create false reports against Israel because of the court of public opinion. They want the world to turn against Israel. But isn't it amazing that God had our president and the advisors around him say that it was okay to go to the middle of this war zone and to land on this very day so that he could announce to the world that he saw the evidence and that this rocket did not come from Israel, but it came just like the Arab TV network had reported, that it came from a misfired rocket that fell short, fired on Israel from the enemy, just a little beyond this hospital where the rockets, you can see it on the video, came over the hospital, but one of them fell short and landed in Gaza, which has happened many times because they make these rockets in Gaza. So they're not always made with all the right specs. But I was just so proud. If you didn't see our president's last speech that somebody wrote for him, but he delivered it well, and where he was saying, we're standing squarely behind Israel. Israel has the same values that we have. They have the same concern about the humanitarian crisis that's going on, and they're trying to navigate between, dealing with this enemy that has to be dealt with, and not seeing innocent people killed in this, and so forth and so on. And I was just glad that I'm in America. Even though that I know America has largely turned their back on God, and we have dishonored the founding fathers' roots on this country. But at a time like this, boy, am I glad that we're on the right side of this spiritual battle between darkness and light, and demonic and God's will and purpose. And because if we weren't, then God help America, because we would be under the same judgment that the nations that come against Israel will be under. So Biden's speech, I think, on this day, where if he had not come to Israel on this day, I think it would have been hard for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to deliver that word. But to have the President of America, the most powerful nation and army in the world, to say, I saw the evidence, and I'm telling you it was in Israel. On this day, had he not landed on this day, even though he had planned to have these meetings with the President of Jordan, the President of Egypt, in order to help open up the southern route out of Gaza so people can get out of the country. He had planned to have these meetings, and as soon as they thought that this was Israel that had destroyed a hospital, they canceled this meeting with our president. But he said he would call them on his way here, so maybe he's already had that conversation with them. But had he not been there to stand shoulder to shoulder with the prime minister on this day, I think all these major protests, thousands of people in the streets of the West Bank in Israel, Palestinians protesting Israel. And of course, this is Bethlehem and Samaria and Judea. This is Israel. They call it West Bank. I call it Israel. They call Gaza, Palestinian territory, but it's all Israel. But it's been given back, and we see how trading land for peace has worked. It hasn't worked. But in any event, these protests going on with Hezbollah up in Lebanon and in Iran, and thousands of people on the streets. And even though the facts are out there. People believe what they want to believe, but I think those facts are going to help de-escalate it. But our president being in Israel on this day, I think was just the right time. Otherwise, they would have been on their own to try to debate this. And of course, the Middle East knows that we've got these two huge aircraft carriers just off the coast of Israel and the Mediterranean. And, our nation, I don't believe, I believe our nation uses restraint before getting into any war, but there's strength through power. And the fact is, if Hezbollah or Iran would make the bad choice to escalate this, the U.S. could finish it really quickly. Make no mistake about it. The armies of the U.S. are way stronger than these Middle Eastern armies. We don't want to do that. But if that would happen and the U.S. had to move, then, it's in God's hands. We're not putting our faith in military might. I'm talking about us. We're not putting our faith in governments or in political parties or presidents. Come on, somebody. But we will put our faith in the kingdom of God and God's plan and purpose in the earth today. Philippians 2 and